She undressed for the exam, and when she lifted her gaze, she found the doctor, her first love from 12 years ago. She couldn't resist, and the office seemed small for such passion. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and let us know in the comments from which city or country you are watching. Emma adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder as she walked down the silent hallway of the clinic. The characteristic smell of antiseptic and the faint buzzing of employees in the background were part of the routine that theoretically should be mundane. But that afternoon, something felt different. A strange tightness in her chest, a restlessness she couldn't explain. Perhaps it was the fact that she was about to undergo an important exam, or perhaps it was just the accumulated stress from work. Or maybe it was just one of those days when the past seemed more present than it should. Taking a deep breath, Emma pushed open the door to the office, as indicated by the receptionist. The environment was sophisticated, minimalist, neutral-colored. Walls, shelves organized with precision, and a large dark wood desk gave the space an air of seriousness and professionalism. She didn't even have time to notice more details. Her gaze slowly rose, finding the doctor who had his back to the door, organizing some papers. And then, when he turned around, Emma's world stopped. Ethan. The shock was so intense that she felt her legs wobble for a moment. The air seemed thin, and a whirlwind of memories hit her like an unrelenting storm. His eyes, still as intense as before, fixed on her with surprise and something else, a mixture of disbelief and a hint of contained emotion. He was different, more mature, stronger. His face carried traces of experience that time had sculpted, but his eyes were still the same. And it was exactly there, at that moment, that Emma realized that 12 years had not been enough to erase the impact that man had on her. For a second, no one said anything. The silence was dense, laden with unasked questions, buried feelings. Ethan was the first to break the silence. Emma? His name slipped from his lips, almost like a whisper, as if he were still trying to believe what he saw. She swallowed hard, feeling her pulse quicken. She didn't want to show weakness. She didn't want him to notice the chaos that was building inside her. Dr. Ethan, her voice came out firmer than she had expected, but it carried a slight tone of irony, as if she were testing the reality of that moment. He blinked a few times, as if recovering himself. His expression closed slightly, taking on a professional stance, but the spark in his eyes betrayed that he also hadn't expected that reunion. "Are you here as a patient?" Emma nodded, trying to regain control of the situation. "Yes, routine exam. The secretary directed me to this office. I had no idea." She paused, not knowing exactly how to continue. She had no idea that Ethan, the man who had left without explanation, the love who had left her behind without even a goodbye, was now there, in front of her, as her doctor. Ethan cleared his throat, averting his gaze to the papers in front of him for a brief moment. Well, he took a deep breath, regaining his professionalism. "Let's do the exam then." The simple idea of allowing him to examine her sent a shiver down Emma's spine. She felt her body tense, an inner resistance screaming for her to run away from there, but pride kept her steady. Without saying anything more, she walked to the exam table and began to slowly unbutton her blouse, feeling her trembling hands, in a way that irritated her. She shouldn't be like this. She shouldn't be feeling so vulnerable. When she finally lifted her gaze, she found Ethan standing in front of her, watching her with an expression that was hard to decipher. The silence between them became even thicker. He took a deep breath and approached, putting on gloves and taking the stethoscope. The cold touch of the metal against her skin made Emma close her eyes for a second, but it was the warmth of his proximity that truly made her hold her breath. With each careful touch, each meticulous movement, a wave of memories washed over her, his fingers gliding across her skin in a professional manner, but still awakening memories of a time that seemed so distant and at the same time so present. Ethan maintained his composure, but Emma couldn't help but notice the slight tremor in his hands as he adjusted the stethoscope against her chest. The tension between them was almost palpable. When he finished the exam, he took a step back, slowly, removing the gloves. "You're fine," he said, his voice lower than before. "The exam showed nothing concerning." Emma nodded, putting the blouse back on and trying to regain control over her own emotions. "Thank you." She stood up from the exam table and was about to leave when she heard his voice calling her again, this time loaded with something that seemed like urgency. "Emma." She paused, but didn't turn immediately. She felt that if she looked at him again, something inside her might crumble. "I need to talk to you," he continued, his voice deep but vulnerable. Emma squinted her eyes for a moment, gathering courage before turning around. When she finally did, her expression was cold, calculated. 12 years, Ethan. 12 years without a single explanation. And now you want to talk? The pain embedded in her words hit him like a punch. She could see that in his eyes, but she didn't regret saying them. He ran a hand through his hair, seeming frustrated with himself. I never wanted to disappear like that. But you did." Silence settled in again. But this time, it wasn't just any silence. It was the kind of silence that preceded a storm. Without saying anything more, Emma took a step back, and before Ethan could argue, she left the office, leaving behind a man who seemed as lost as she felt. But something inside her said that this story was still far from over. Emma left the office with quick, almost hurried steps, as if she were fleeing from something that was closely pursuing her. Her chest rose and fell irregularly, and she needed a few seconds to take a deep breath and compose herself before crossing the clinic's hallway. The feeling of having been hit by a hurricane still dominated her. Ethan. He was there, in flesh and blood. More mature, more confident, but still the same man who once made her heart race and then shattered it mercilessly. She couldn't tell if she felt anger or just confusion, perhaps both. But one truth was undeniable. That reunion affected her much more than she would like to admit. When she reached the car, her hands were still trembling slightly. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, as if she could release all that she was feeling into that pressure. "Damned," she whispered to herself, closing her eyes for a moment. The problem was that no matter how much she wanted to hate him, the impact of seeing him again still reverberated within her. His eyes, the way he looked at her. There was something there, something she couldn't ignore. Ethan remained in the office for a few minutes after she left, still standing in the same spot, as if he needed time to process what had just happened. Emma. He repeated her name mentally, letting the reality of that reunion hit him with full force. 12 years. 12 years without seeing her, without hearing her voice, without knowing if she was okay. And now, out of nowhere, she was there, in front of him, and the way her eyes sparkled with indignation made it clear that there were still open wounds. He ran his hand through his hair, restless. The way Emma confronted him shook him more than he expected. 12 years, Ethan. Those words echoed in his mind, heavy with pain and resentment. He couldn't blame her for reacting this way. In fact, he expected nothing different. But what was he supposed to do now? Ethan had always imagined that if he ever saw her again, he would have the chance to explain. But that was not how it happened. She didn't want to hear him, and he didn't blame her for it. However, something inside him said that this story was not over yet. Emma tried to follow her routine normally, but she couldn't. The reunion with Ethan wouldn't leave her head. During the night, she tossed and turned in bed several times, unable to find peace. Memories came like a flood, dragging her back to a time that felt so distant yet incredibly close. She remembered how it all started. Ethan was her first love, the first touch, the first kiss, the first man to make her feel that the world could stop when they were together. She remembered the nights they lay on the grass, looking at the stars, making plans for the future. "I will never leave you, Emma," he whispered against her hair while holding her tightly. And she believed until the day he disappeared, without explanations, without goodbyes, just a crushing silence that left her devastated. She tried to hate him, tried to move on, but the truth was that a part of her never managed to understand. And now he was back. The next day began like any other. Emma went to work trying to concentrate, but her mind kept insisting on revisiting the past. And then, when she least expected it, fate decided to mess up her life once again. In the late afternoon, while organizing some papers at the cafe where she worked, she felt a presence behind her. A shiver ran down her spine even before she turned around. When she did, her heart nearly stopped. Ethan. He was there. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, as if she could expel the confusion that had taken hold of her. When she looked at him again, she saw something different in his expression. Determination. "What are you doing here?" Her voice came out colder than she intended, but she could not help it. Ethan took a deep breath, as if choosing his words carefully before speaking. "I needed to see you." Emma crossed her arms, maintaining a defensive posture. "We saw each other yesterday. Wasn't that enough?" He watched her for a few seconds, and she noticed the way his eyes studied her, as if searching for something beyond the evident anger on her face. "I know you have questions," he said finally, "and I am ready to answer them." She let out an ironic laugh. "Now, after 12 years, yes, now." Emma felt her throat tighten. Part of her wanted to send him away, pretend he never reappeared. But another part, one she hated to admit existed, wanted to listen. She wanted to understand. Taking a deep breath, she averted her gaze, thinking about what to do. Finally, she crossed her arms and faced Ethan again. "You have 5 minutes." Relief shone in his eyes, but it was soon replaced by something more serious. "I didn't disappear because I wanted to, Emma." She raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Then tell me, what was so strong that made you disappear without a single word?" He hesitated for a moment, but then let out a long sigh. "My family forced me to leave." Confusion overtook Emma. "What?" Ethan ran his hand through the back of his neck, visibly uncomfortable. "My father. He never accepted our relationship. He thought I was throwing away my future. And when the opportunity came for me to study abroad, he didn't give me a choice. He threatened me, Emma. He said that if I didn't go, he would destroy everything I loved." Anger mixed with disbelief within her. "Are you telling me that you left because your father ordered you to?" Her voice carried a bitter tone. "You never thought of looking for me, explaining?" Ethan closed his eyes for a second, visibly frustrated. "I tried, but he kept everything under control, changed my number, kept me away from everything that connected me to you. And in the end, He stopped, and Emma felt a tightness in her chest as she saw the pain in his eyes. "I was wrong, Emma. I should have fought harder." The silence between them became heavy. She wanted to believe him, but was it too late for that? And more than that, did the truth change anything? The past was there, between them, pulsing, like an open wound, and she didn't know if she wanted to heal it or let it bleed. Emma felt her heart pounding against her chest as she processed Ethan's words. Her mind tried to fit that new piece of the puzzle, but nothing seemed to make sense. For years, she had built a version of the story in which he simply chose to leave, in which the love he claimed to feel was not as strong as it seemed. But now he was there, saying he was forced, that he was ripped from her life. She wanted to believe, but could she? "That's convenient, Ethan," she finally said, crossing her arms and forcing an ironic smile. "Blaming your family? Telling me after all this time that you were a victim of circumstances?" He didn't look away, and that irritated her even more. "I never wanted things to be this way, Emma." His voice was firm, but there was a shadow of regret in it. "Do you think it was easy for me?" She let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Oh, poor you. It must have been horrible to disappear without worrying about those left behind." Ethan's eyes shone with something that seemed like guilt. "I worried every day, but I had no way back. There is always a way." Her voice rose, her chest rising and falling quickly. "You could have written to me. You could have waited for me. You could have fought for me." Ethan ran his hands over his face, breathing deeply. "I tried. I swear I tried. But my family, they made sure to keep me away. They pressured me, isolated me, and by the time I realized, it was too late." Emma clenched her fists. "No, what happened was that you moved on with your life, and I had to move on with mine." The silence that settled between them was thick, heavy, filled with everything that went unspoken. Ethan looked at her with an expression that mixed frustration and sadness. "Do you really believe I forgot about you?" She wanted to say yes. She wanted to end that conversation there, turn her back and never look at him again. But something inside her hesitated. His gaze was sincere. The tone of his voice carried real pain. And it was at that moment that Emma felt fear. Because if Ethan was telling the truth, everything she had built to protect herself all these years would come crashing down. The following days were a true emotional chaos. Emma tried in vain to go about her routine without letting the memory of Ethan affect her. But no matter how hard she tried, his presence lingered over her thoughts like an insistent shadow. He returned to the cafe several times, but never insisted on a new conversation. He only watched her from a distance, as if waiting for her to take the initiative. And that irritated her even more. He couldn't just mess up her life and then stand by, waiting for something, not after everything that happened. Why was he still there? Did he want to fix something? Or just relieve his own guilt? She couldn't essay, and that consumed her. That night, while organizing some boxes in her house, Emma found an old memory box. Her body froze for a moment. She thought about ignoring it, leaving it there untouched, but before she could stop herself, her hands were already opening the lid. Inside there were notes, photos, small memories of a time that seemed to belong to another life. At the top of everything was an old blue-covered notebook. She hesitated, but in the end, her fingers glided over the worn cover before opening the first page, and there was the handwriting that once made her smile. "Emma, I never thought I would write something like this one day, but if I don't speak now, I might never have the courage. You are the best event of my life, my now and my later. If there is something stronger than love, it is what I feel for you." The words seemed to vibrate in her chest. She remembered that notebook. Ethan used to write things for her, little declarations, silent promises. She flipped through the pages, reliving every word, every feeling she tried to bury, until she reached the last note. Something she had never seen before. The words were blurred, as if they had been written in a hurry. "Forgive me, I didn't want to leave. I swear I didn't want to. I tried, but I had no choice. You will always be my love, even if I can no longer be yours." Emma felt a shiver run through her body. He tried to say goodbye. Somehow, at some point, Ethan tried to warn her, and she never knew. A mix of anger and pain settled within her. If he really wanted to warn her, why did she never receive that message? What really happened back then? And more than that, was she willing to find out? The next morning, before she could change her mind, Emma took her phone and typed a short message. "Can we talk?" The time between sending and receiving a response felt like an eternity, until finally the phone vibrated. Whenever and wherever you want. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She wanted answers, and this time, he couldn't. Run away. Emma chose a discreet cafe far from the bustling city center. She didn't want to risk running into acquaintances, nor did she want to turn that meeting into a spectacle. She arrived a few minutes early, but her restlessness prevented her from sitting down. She leaned against the counter, ordering a black coffee, while her eyes scanned the environment in search of him. The sound of the doorbell rang out, and before she even turned around, Emma knew it was Ethan. She felt it, as if her body was still trained to recognize his presence. He was there, once again. Ethan walked towards her with firm but cautious steps, as if he was aware that any sudden movement could make her flinch. Emma took a deep breath and pointed to a table in the corner, far enough away to ensure the privacy she needed. He followed the gesture, sitting across from her. For a few seconds, silence reigned between the two. She watched him. He watched back. Neither of them seemed to know how to start. But Emma wanted no more beating around the bush. "I found the notebook." Her voice was firm, unwavering. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "Notebook? The one you used to write to me." He remained silent, seeming to absorb the information. "And among all those beautiful words," she continued, crossing her arms on the table, "I found a page I had never seen before." Ethan took a deep breath, leaning back in his chair. "You saw the last entry?" "Yes, I did." "And now you're going to tell me the truth." He nodded slowly, but did not respond immediately. Emma hated that. His pause, as if he chose each word carefully before letting anything out. She didn't want measured words. She wanted sincerity. "My father threatened me, Emma," he finally said. "But it wasn't just with words." She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean by that?" Ethan clenched his fists on the table. "He knew I loved you. He knew that if he tried to distance me from you, I would fight. So he decided to attack in another way." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "How?" His eyes were dark now. "He told me that if I didn't leave and cut any ties with you, he would destroy your father." Her heart skipped a beat. "My father?" "Yes. He found out about some debts your father had back then, and said that if I didn't disappear from your life, he would make sure he lost everything. The house, the job, the dignity." Emma blinked several times, feeling the ground open up beneath her feet. She remembered that time. Her father went through financial difficulties, that was a fact. But somehow, he managed to pull himself up before things got completely out of control. She never knew how until now. "So," her voice trembled, "you left to protect my father." Ethan nodded. "I saw no other choice." Emma looked away, trying to process that. She spent over a decade nurturing the idea that he left her because he wanted to. That, in the end, he didn't love her enough to stay. But the truth was, he was trying to protect her. She felt a lump form in her throat. "Why did you never try to tell me?" "I tried," he said immediately. "That note in the notebook was my last attempt, but my father made sure that any message from me would never reach you. He did everything to erase my existence from your life." Emma closed her eyes, trying to control the flood of emotions taking over her. "You could have tried harder, Ethan. I know." His voice carried real weight. "And that's what haunts me every day." She took a deep breath, gathering strength to face him again. There was so much there, so much past, so much pain. But now, finally, she knew the truth. And that changed everything, or did it? Because even understanding his reasons, the scars were still there. She spent years rebuilding herself, years trying to erase the pain he left. Ethan watched her silently, as if waiting for her to say something. But Emma didn't know what to say, so she simply grabbed her bag and stood up. "I need some time to process this." He nodded, understanding. "I hope so." She didn't reply. She just turned and left the cafe, feeling her chest heavy with everything she had just discovered. But deep down, she knew that this was far from the end. Emma walked the streets without a definite destination, feeling the cold night wind brush against her skin. The encounter with Ethan still reverberated within her, like an insistent echo of something that refused to be silenced. She thought that hearing the truth would bring her some kind of peace, but that was not what happened. On the contrary, the revelation only muddied her feelings even more. Her heart still ached from his absence, even after so much time. But now, knowing that he left to protect her father, made everything seem more complicated. And the worst part was the anger she felt towards herself. Because, despite everything, despite the years of pain and the sleepless nights crying for him, a part of her still wanted him. And that terrified her. The days passed slowly. Ethan respected her request for space, but Emma knew he was waiting for her to decide what to do with all of this. She tried to act normally, to focus on work, on the life she had built without him. But the truth is that her mind was trapped in the past, and worse, trapped in him. That afternoon, after yet another day trying to avoid her own feelings, Emma decided to go to the park. Walking always helped to clear her thoughts, but ironically, it was there that her destiny intertwined with Ethan's once again. She saw him from a distance, sitting on a wooden bench, his elbows resting on his knees and his gaze distant. Her heart jumped in her chest before she could react, and then, as if he felt her presence, he lifted his head and saw her. Ethan stood up slowly, his eyes fixed on her. For a moment, Emma thought of running away, but instead, she took a deep breath and walked towards him. "Did you follow me?" Her voice came out more provocatively than she intended. Ethan smiled faintly, but there was something melancholic in that smile. "No, I just needed a place to think." She nodded, a strange silence settling between them. Then Ethan took a deep breath and said, "I know you need time, but I need to ask, can you forgive me?" Emma felt her chest tighten. She didn't expect him to be so direct. He didn't try to justify himself any further. He didn't try to convince her of anything. He just asked, and that completely disarmed her. "I don't know." The sincerity came out before she could filter her words. Ethan nodded slowly. "That's okay. I'll wait." She looked away, feeling the weight of that conversation settle in her chest. Emma hesitated, feeling a knot in her throat. "I don't know what to do with all of this, Ethan. I've spent years thinking that you just abandoned me, and now I find out that it wasn't quite like that. This changes everything, but at the same time, it changes nothing." He took a step closer. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, and in that instant, she knew she had to be honest. "I'm scared. Scared to believe, scared of getting hurt again." Ethan looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "I'm scared too. But there's one thing I know, Emma. I never stopped loving you." She closed her eyes for a second, feeling the confession hit every part of her being. But she couldn't just accept that, not yet. So without saying anything, she just turned around and walked away, leaving Ethan there standing still, watching her walk away. But this time, he wouldn't try to run from what he felt, and she knew that sooner or later, she would have to stop running too. Emma never ran away from anything. She always faced challenges head-on, dealing with losses and difficulties like a survivor. But Ethan was different. He represented something she didn't know how to handle, an unfinished past, a feeling that never died, a story interrupted without an ending. In the days that followed the meeting in the park, she found herself struggling against herself. There was a voice inside her telling her to protect herself, keep her distance, move on, as she had for all those years. But there was another, much stronger voice that wanted to know more, that wanted to understand everything he had been through. And deep down, she knew that there was only one way to end that internal war: face her own fears. That night, Emma picked up the phone before she could change her mind and sent a short message to Ethan. "We need to talk. Tomorrow after work." The response came in seconds. "Where?" She closed her eyes for a moment before typing, "At my house." Ethan did not question. "I'll be there." And now she would have to stick to her own decision. The next day, when the doorbell rang, Emma had to take a deep breath before opening the door. Ethan was standing there wearing a dark shirt and jeans, but it wasn't the clothes that caught her attention. It was the look. He seemed different. There was a firmness, a clear desire not to leave anything unfinished. She stepped aside for him to enter, closing the door behind him. The silence was broken by the sound of the clock on the wall, marking each second that dragged on. "You can talk," she said, crossing her arms, trying to maintain her composure. Ethan did not look away. "After I left, I lived for years with the feeling that a part of me had been left behind. I tried to move on, tried to accept that this was not our moment, but I never could." She swallowed hard. "Why did you never try to come back?" He ran, his hand through his hair, an automatic gesture of frustration. "At first I was trapped. My father still controlled everything. But when I finally gained my independence, when it was already too late, I discovered something that destroyed me even more." Emma frowned. "What?" Ethan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I came back. A few years ago, I came looking for you." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. "What?" "Yes, but you were already with someone else." She widened her eyes. "What are you talking about?" He took a deep breath before continuing. "I saw you with a man and a child. I saw you together in the park, laughing, and I thought you had moved on." Emma blinked a few times, trying to fit the pieces of that story together. And then it all made sense. "Liam," Ethan frowned. "Liam. The boy you saw was Liam." Ethan still looked confused. "Who is Liam, Emma?" She took a deep breath, feeling her heart race. This was the part he still didn't know. The part that would change everything. "Liam is my son." Ethan stood frozen, his eyebrows knitting together in shock. "Your son?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, but there's something you need to know." His eyes were fixed on hers, full of unasked questions. And then she told the truth. "Liam is Mia's son." The impact of those words was immediate. Ethan turned, pale. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. He stumbled a step back, as if he needed space to absorb the information. "Mia, my sister." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of that revelation fill the room. "Yes, Mia got pregnant but never had the chance to raise the child. She passed away shortly after giving birth." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, they were filled with pain. I didn't know. No one did. It all happened very fast, and when I realized I was the only person who could take care of him, so I did. I adopted him, Ethan." He ran his hands over his face, trying to process everything. "I have a nephew, and I never knew." Emma felt her throat tighten. "I didn't know how to tell you. And after so long, I thought you would never come back." The silence that followed was crushing. Ethan was staring into space, lost in his own thoughts, and then he looked at her. "I want to meet him." Emma felt her heart race. She knew this moment would come, but was Liam ready for it? Was she? One thing was certain, their lives would never be the same again. The silence between Emma and Ethan lingered, laden with feelings that could not be expressed in words. Ethan still seemed dazed by the revelation. He rubbed his face with his hands, as if he were trying to absorb everything at once. "Oh, I can't believe it," he murmured, shaking his head. "All these years, I had a nephew and never knew." Emma felt a tightness in her chest. "I never hid this from you on purpose, Ethan. But over time, things happened, and telling you no longer seemed like an option." He raised his gaze, still processing. "Mia, did she know?" Emma nodded slowly. "Yes. She knew about the pregnancy, but it was complicated. She became very fragile in the last months, and then, when Liam was born, she had complications." Ethan looked away, his jaw clenched. "I should have been there. You didn't know." Emma tried to soften it, but she knew that nothing she said would lessen the guilt he was feeling. Ethan stood up and walked to the living room window, staring into the darkness outside. "What is he like?" he asked without turning around. Emma smiled gently. "Smart, curious, full of energy. He has a smile that lights up any place." Ethan nodded slowly. "Does he know about me?" She hesitated. "He knows he had an amazing mother who loved him more than anything. But about you? No." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing another blow. "I want to meet him." Emma took a deep breath. "I know." "When?" She hesitated again. "I don't want to rush anything, Ethan. Liam has a routine, a structured life. I need to think about the best way to introduce this to him." Ethan turned around, looking her in the eyes. "He is my nephew, Emma. My only real family now." She felt the weight of those words. Ethan had never had an easy relationship with his parents. Mia had always been his foundation, his safe harbor, and now the only thing left of her was Liam. Emma nodded. "We'll do this the right way." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to accept. "I hope so, but I won't give up." The following days were a whirlwind. Emma avoided thinking about what would happen when Ethan met Liam. How would the boy react? How would Ethan deal with the fact that he had missed so many years of his nephew's life? As she tried to sort out her own feelings, an unexpected event occurred. That Friday, her best friend Ava convinced her to attend a charity dinner that her company was organizing. "It will do you good. You're overwhelmed with all of this. A night out, a little distraction, it won't kill you." Emma gave in. She wore an elegant but discreet black dress and tried to push all her worries aside. The event hall was beautifully decorated, with warm lights creating a sophisticated atmosphere. People chatted in small groups, waiters passed by serving glasses of sparkling wine, and soft music filled the air. Emma tried to focus on the event, but it only took one glance for her body to freeze. Ethan was there. He was wearing a sharp suit, his tie loosened and his posture relaxed. But what really hit her was his gaze when he saw her. It was as if time stood still. For a moment, she forgot everything around her. Ava, who was by her side, noticed the tension. "Do you know him?" Emma wet her lips, feeling her mouth go dry. "Yes." Ethan approached slowly, stopping in front of her. "You look beautiful." His voice was low and husky, making her stomach churn. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked, trying to regain control. "One of my colleagues dragged me to this. I didn't know you would be here." Was that the truth? Or did he already? And no, she wasn't sure, but somehow it didn't matter. The night went on and inevitably Ethan ended up joining the group where Emma was. He talked to everyone, always polite, always charming, but from time to time his eyes sought hers. And when one of the organizers invited everyone to dance, Ethan extended his hand to her. "A dance?" Emma should have said no, but she didn't. He led her to the dance floor, his hand resting gently on her waist. The touch made her body react instantly. "This isn't a good idea," she murmured. "Then why did you accept?" She didn't answer. They moved slowly, their bodies close enough to feel each other's warmth. "Do you remember our first dance?" Ethan asked, his eyes locked on hers. Emma closed her eyes for a brief moment. She remembered. They were young, at a city festival. The music played in the background, and Ethan took her by the hand, despite her initial resistance. "Do you trust me?" he asked that night. And she had trusted. But years later he left. Now Ethan held her the same way, as if he wanted to reclaim everything that had been lost. "Let's not revisit the past," she said, trying to sound firm. But Ethan didn't back down. "What if I want to create a new future?" Emma felt her breath hitch. Ethan pulled her a little closer. "I was wrong, Emma, but if you let me, I can make it right now." His gaze was intense, sincere, and it was there in that moment that Emma realized the obvious. No matter how hard she tried to fight it, a part of her was still his. It always had been. But would that be enough? She didn't know, so before she made a mistake, before she gave in to the impulse to kiss him, Emma took a step back. "I need to go." Ethan didn't stop her. He simply nodded, his eyes darkening for a moment. She stepped away, feeling her heart race in her chest. The past was knocking at her door, and this time, she didn't know if she could keep it closed. Emma arrived home that night with her thoughts in turmoil. Her fingers still tingled from Ethan's touch. Her mind spun with the sound of his words, the way he looked at her, how his presence dominated the room, how his body seemed to fit into hers in a way that was far too dangerous. She threw herself onto the sofa, closing her eyes and trying to calm her breathing, but it was useless. The past was very alive inside her. And worse, desire was there too. But it wasn't just desire. It wasn't just a memory of a teenage love. It was something deeper, something she couldn't ignore. Emma spent years trying to erase the pain of his absence, but now that she knew the truth, something inside her wavered, and it terrified her. The next morning, while preparing coffee, she heard light footsteps approaching. Liam, still in pajamas, rubbed his sleepy eyes and pulled out a chair to sit at the table. "Good morning, champ. Did you sleep well?" Emma asked, pouring him a glass of milk. The boy nodded, yawning. "Yes, I dreamed I was an astronaut." She smiled, ruffling his hair. "I bet it was amazing." Liam took a sip of the milk and watched her for a moment before asking, "Mom, why do you look sad?" Emma's smile faltered. She never underestimated Liam's perception. He had always been observant, always noticed when something was out of place. "I'm not sad, my love. I'm just thinking about some things." Liam frowned. "Is it about the man the other day?" Emma felt her heart stop for a second. "What man?" "The one who came here." She blinked a few times, trying to understand. "You saw Ethan?" Liam shrugged. "I was in my room, but I heard you talking to him." Emma took a deep breath. "Yes, it was him." Liam was silent for a moment, fiddling with the edge of his glass. "Is he your friend?" Emma swallowed hard. "He was, a long time ago." "Is he coming back?" That question hung in the air for a few seconds. Emma knew that sooner or later, she would have to tell Liam the truth. And deep down, she also knew that Ethan wasn't going to leave this time. "Yes, my love, he's coming back." Liam simply nodded without more questions, but Emma knew that in his curious little head, he would try to understand what was happening, and she needed to be ready for that. That afternoon, after much reflection, Emma sent a message to Ethan. "If you want to meet Liam, come have dinner here tonight." The reply came almost immediately. "I'll be there." Emma felt her heart race. Part of her was still reluctant. She was still afraid. But another part wanted to see how Ethan would react to meeting his nephew, and she wanted to see how Liam would react to him. When the doorbell rang that night, Emma had to take a deep breath before opening the door. Ethan was there, holding a bag. "I brought a gift for Liam." She raised an eyebrow. "You don't even know him yet." Ethan smiled sideways. "It's never too early to start off on the right foot." Emma rolled her eyes but stepped aside to let him in. Liam was in the living room, engrossed in a puzzle, but looked up as soon as he saw Ethan. For a few seconds, the two stared at each other. Emma felt a tightening in her chest. Ethan seemed nervous but smiled softly. Liam, on the other hand, was watching him with curiosity. "Liam, this is Ethan?" Emma said, trying to keep her voice neutral. The boy blinked a few times before speaking. "Hi." Ethan crouched down to be at his level. "Hi, champ." Liam crossed his arms. "Are you my mom's friend?" Ethan glanced quickly at Emma before answering, "I used to be, but we hadn't seen each other for a while." Liam nodded slowly, as if processing the answer. "Did you bring a present?" Ethan smiled and handed over the bag. "Yes, I hope you like it." Liam took the package and ripped the paper with enthusiasm. His eyes sparkled when he saw an adventure storybook. "Wow, I love these books. I heard you like stories." Liam smiled, flipping through the pages. "This has maps and riddles." "Yes, and if you want, we can solve them together." Liam looked at Ethan for a moment, evaluating him, and then shrugged. "I think it could be cool." Emma watched the scene with a lump in her throat. Ethan was trying, and Liam, even without fully understanding who he was, seemed willing to accept him. Maybe this could work. But Emma was still afraid. Afraid of Ethan getting close and then leaving again. Afraid of Liam getting attached and getting disappointed. And above all, afraid that she herself wouldn't be able to resist the man who, even after so many years, still made her heart race. And that was the part that scared her the most. Ethan never thought that meeting Liam would affect him so much. He expected a curious boy, perhaps suspicious, but what he did not foresee was the emptiness that took hold of him upon realizing everything he had lost. Liam was incredible. The boy was smart, full of energy, and had that spark in his eyes that Ethan recognized. It was the same spark that Mia had when she talked about her dreams, and now he was there. Growing up without Ethan even knowing of his existence, that thought ate away at him from within, but above all, it created an uncontrollable need within him. He wanted to be present, and not just for Liam. He wanted to be there for Emma too. But was she ready for that? The following days were an adaptation process. Ethan made a point of approaching Liam patiently, without forcing anything. Little by little, the boy began to trust him. They started reading together, solving the puzzles of the book that Ethan gave him, and eventually began to meet more frequently. And in the midst of it all, Emma watched the two of them get closer with conflicting feelings. Part of her felt relieved to see that Liam seemed happy with Ethan's presence, but the other part was a complete mess, because every time she saw Ethan with Liam, something inside her softened, and that was dangerous, because, try as she might to convince herself otherwise, she still hadn't been able to close the door on the past, and Ethan was getting closer and closer to crossing it for good. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Emma went down the stairs and found Ethan on the porch, gazing at the sky. For a moment, she just stood there, watching him. The faint light of the moon illuminated his face, highlighting the strong line of his jaw. He seemed lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, crossing her arms. Ethan turned to her, a weak smile on his lips. "About how cruel time is." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" He took a deep breath. "Because it took years from me that I will never be able to get back. Emma felt a tightness in her chest. You can still be a part of his life. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. And yours. Her heart wavered. She looked away, focusing on the quiet street ahead. Ethan. Don't tell me I'm waiting for something that doesn't exist, Emma. I know you feel it. She pressed, her arms against her body. What I feel doesn't change what happened. He took a step closer. But it changes what can happen now. Emma closed her eyes for a moment. She wanted to retreat. She wanted to protect herself. But when Ethan raised his hand and gently touched her face, her whole body reacted. Let me prove that I'm not going anywhere this time, he whispered. She opened her eyes and found his intense gaze, and she knew. She knew that no matter how hard she tried to fight it, she was surrendering. The question was this right? Or was she risking having her heart broken again? Emma stepped away from Ethan's touch before it was too late. She felt her body plead for that contact, but her mind screamed in alarm. I can't. Her voice came out in a trembling whisper. Ethan did not insist. He simply looked at her with those eyes full of feelings that she did not want to decipher. Why not? He asked with a hoarse voice. She tightened her arms around her own body, trying to contain the internal storm. Because I'm scared. Scared of what? Emma let out a humorless laugh, looking away. Scared to believe in you again. Scared to throw myself into this story and end up broken once more. Ethan took a step forward, keeping his voice low and firm. I understand. But I'm here, Emma, and I'm not going anywhere. She bit her lip, struggling against the wave of emotions. Words are easy, Ethan. How can I be sure? He didn't answer immediately. He just stuck his hand in his pocket and pulled out a small silver object. Emma frowned when she saw it was a necklace. It was a delicate and discreet book-shaped pendant. What is this? Ethan opened the pendant. Inside there was a tiny folded piece of paper. She carefully took it, unfolding it. There were 3 promises written there in a handwriting that Emma would recognize anywhere. 1. Never leave without explanation again. 2. Take care of Liam as if he were my own son. 3. Wait for you as long as necessary. Her hands trembled. Ethan, I know that promises mean nothing without actions, he said, his voice heavy with sincerity, but I wanted you to know that I'm here to stay, that I want to be a part of your life and Liam's. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, feeling her chest tighten. How many times had she dreamed of hearing something like this? How many times had she imagined Ethan coming back, saying he never stopped loving her, but reality was always more complicated. She opened her eyes again, meeting his. What if I'm not ready? Ethan smiled softly. I hope. She felt the air escape her lungs, because for the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could believe again. But there was still one last obstacle, because even if she wanted to try, she needed to know if Liam was ready for this too. And that was the hardest decision of all. Emma held the small book pendant between her fingers, feeling the weight of Ethan's words echoing inside her. The 3 promises still reverberated in her mind, each one carrying a truth that she wasn't sure she had the courage to accept. The past had always been a shadow between them, but what if this time it could just be the past? She needed to decide. And that decision didn't only involve her. That night, while putting Liam to bed, she sat beside her son and took a deep breath. Love, can I ask you something? Liam, already a bit sleepy, turned in bed and looked at her curiously. Yes. Emma stroked the boy's hair, carefully choosing her words. What do you think about Ethan? Liam furrowed his brow, thoughtful. He's nice. He teaches me things, and he doesn't treat kids like they're stupid. Emma smiled. That's important. Liam played with one of the buttons on his pajamas, still processing. Is he going to stay, Mummy? Emma felt her heart race. Would you like him to stay?" The boy shrugged, but his voice was sincere. "I think so." She nodded slowly, feeling a knot form in her throat. Ethan had already won Liam's heart. The question that remained was, what about hers? In the following days, Emma kept her distance, processing everything. Ethan respected her space, but she knew he was waiting. Then one night, while sorting through some old papers, she found a yellowed envelope at the bottom of a drawer. Her chest tightened as she recognized her sister's handwriting. It was a letter from Mia. Emma sat down slowly, her hands trembling, and opened the envelope. "My sister, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer there. And I hate that idea. I hate having to leave Liam. But if there's someone in the world who can give him the love he deserves, that person is you. But Emma, he doesn't just need you. He needs a family. He needs a complete home. And if one day Ethan comes back, please don't push him away. He could be exactly what Liam needs, and who knows what you need as well." Emma felt her eyes welling up with tears. Mia always knew. Even before everything happened, her sister knew that Ethan and Liam were destined to meet. And maybe, just maybe, that applied to her as well. The next morning, Emma made her decision. She took her phone and sent a short message to Ethan. "Meet me at the park at 10. When she arrived, he was already waiting, hands in his pockets and a sparkle of expectation in his eyes. "You came." He smiled softly. Emma took a deep breath. "I read a letter from Mia yesterday." Ethan tensed. "What did it say?" "That if you came back, I should let you be part of Liam's life." He nodded slowly, absorbing that truth. "And you? What do you think about that?" Emma bit her lip, feeling her heart race, and then, finally, she let down all her barriers. I think she was right. Ethan's gaze darkened with the intensity of the moment. "Emma?" But before he could say anything, she stepped forward and took his hand. "I want to try, but this time for real. No ghosts from the past between us." Ethan's eyes softened. "Are you sure?" She smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "For the first time in years, yes." Ethan didn't wait for anything else. He pulled her close and kissed her. A kiss that was not just about missing each other. It was a kiss of reunion, of a new beginning, of everything that should never have been lost. And for the first time, Emma knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, with Ethan and with Liam, finally together. Time never stopped to wait for anyone. It followed its relentless course, carrying with it the pains, fears, and interrupted stories. But sometimes fate granted a second chance to those who were truly willing to fight for it. Emma, Ethan, and Liam now had this chance. After the reunion in the park, nothing happened instantly. The love that once existed between Emma and Ethan was still there, but they both knew that reconstructing it required more than just pretty words and promises on paper. It took time, it took patience, and above all, it was necessary for Liam to feel that this new family was safe for him. Ethan dedicated himself like never before. Every moment with Liam was a discovery. He learned that his nephew loved to draw maps and create stories with pirates and treasure hunters. He discovered that he had a tremendous fear of thunderstorms, but disguised it to appear brave. He saw that the boy enjoyed running barefooted in the yard, and that, when focused on something, he bit his lower lip, just like Mia used to. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle of Liam's life that Ethan tried to fit together, and gradually they created a bond that could no longer be broken. But there was still an obstacle that Ethan needed to overcome: Emma's fear. She wanted to believe. She wanted to trust him. But on some quiet nights when Ethan pulled her close, he felt her body still tense, as if a part of her was waiting for him to disappear again. And Ethan understood. He understood because he knew that the past had left scars on her. That's why he didn't pressure her. He just stayed. He stayed every time she tried to pull away. He stayed every time she looked at him with that mix of desire and hesitation. And he stayed even when she had a small outburst of insecurity and said that maybe it was better to take a break. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma," he said that night, holding her face with both hands. "No matter how much you try to push me away, I'm here to stay," she cried. And at that moment, she realized that he was truly there, not just physically present, but soulfully. And for the first time in so many years, Emma felt she could breathe without fear. Months passed. Liam and Ethan already had a routine together. They saw each other almost every day, whether for a game of soccer in the yard, whether to solve puzzles in the adventure books they both loved, or just to sit side by side and watch science fiction movies while Liam excitedly explained how to build a spaceship. Liam now called Ethan by name, but sometimes, without realizing it, he would say uncle in the middle of the conversation. Ethan didn't correct him, because he knew that was what he was. And that was enough. Emma watched all this from a distance, feeling increasingly confident in the decision she made. But it was on an ordinary afternoon without warning that Ethan proved he was there to stay. Liam had a nightmare. It wasn't uncommon, but that night it was worse than usual. Emma woke up to his screams and ran to the room, her heart racing. When she entered, she found Ethan already there. Liam was sitting on the bed, trembling, his eyes wide with fear. Ethan was holding his hands, murmuring quiet and soothing words. "It's okay, champ. I'm here. It was just a bad dream." Emma felt a lump in her throat, seeing how Ethan calmed him down. She had never seen Liam calm down so quickly before. When Ethan noticed her presence, he looked up at her and smiled softly. And at that moment, Emma knew. She knew that Ethan was already part of their lives, and that it would never be different again. Years later, when Liam was already a teenager, Emma found herself standing in the yard, watching Ethan and her son, working on a science fair project. Liam was now a smart and ambitious young man, passionate about astronomy and engineering. He wanted to build rockets. He wanted to change the world. And he always said it was Ethan who encouraged him to dream big. "Mom!" Liam called, excited. "Come see this!" Emma smiled and walked over to them, feeling her heart warmed by the scene before her. She looked at Ethan, who already had some grey strands appearing at his temples, and felt that strong and unshakable love grow even more within her. Yes, they had difficulties. Yes, there were moments of doubt and fear. But they never gave up. And now they were there, together. "What is it?" Emma asked, kneeling beside them. Liam pointed to a model rocket. "It's a project for school. Uncle Ethan said he thinks one day I can build a real one." Ethan ruffled his hair, laughing. "You can't just build it. You're going to pilot one." Liam laughed, excited. Emma just watched the two, feeling her heart explode with happiness. There at that moment she knew that she had never felt so complete. The past tried to separate them. Fate tested them, but in the end, they triumphed, and they would always triumph. Because Ethan never left again, and Emma never had to face life alone again. They were finally a family, and that was all that ever mattered. And so, after so many years, Emma, Ethan, and Liam found what truly mattered: a home, a new beginning, and a love that not even time could erase. If this story touched your heart, please leave your comment. We want to know your opinion. Do you believe in second chances in love? Have you lived something similar? Share your experience.